Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
The headline from what was a well-planned and well-executed 86th annual conference of the People's National Party is the presence, or was the presence rather, of Vybz Kartel on the party podium, fist raised and drinking in the applause from the thousands of comrades crammed inside the national arena. Today, we'll talk about the substantive bits of the parliament, the presentation, the big speeches that were made, and to hear really and truly if the party deserves a cartel-themed assessment of what they put on Sunday, or must the public look deeper than that, beyond the obvious headline. That's the story today on Lead Story on CVM TV. Welcome to Lead Story on this Monday here on CVM TV. So good to be here with you. We have a package ready for you at the top. Just to put things in context before we go into the heavy discussion, just to say that Sunday's annual conference of the People's National Party, by any measure, very well planned, very well executed. I can't recall a dull moment or a lull in the proceedings. It was high energy right the way through, from the opening entry at 10 a.m. To the climactic presentation from the comrade leader Mark Jefferson Golding, and there are many highlights to look at. But of course, Vybz Kartel is the thing that most people are still talking about 24 hours after the end of the PNP's big event, as they launched themselves headfirst into the sprint to the next general election and their mission to retake Jamaica House. A lot to say on the program today, and we have two gentlemen who are versed in the art of communication. Before we hear from them, though, let's look at CVM's review of what happened at the National Arena on Sunday.
The atmosphere here at the National Arena is crackling with anticipation. It's a palpable energy matched by the party's message. People, time come!
PNP supporters flooded the venue early, charged with enthusiasm for their party. Few, however, could have anticipated appearances by the often controversial Maroon Chief Richard Curry or infamous dancehall icon Adidja Vybz Kartel Palmer. Groups of comrades huddled together in clusters at the National Arena, looking ahead, while also sharing stories of hard-fought battles and past victories.
I grew up in a PJ time, and I see how he has changed Jamaica, the infrastructure. And in terms and the technology, PJ Patterson is my leader, Mr. Infrastructure.
She is the only woman in Jamaica who create history. Not being the first prime minister, that is one, but she come from a councillor to the ICE office in Jamaica.
I remember my grandmother never have a house, and she gave her one.
That was Portia
Simpson.
There's no sign of resignation among these attendees, only a cautious optimism that their efforts over the years will finally bear fruit.
The people don't come out and we put in the work on the ground, we know so we can overcome it. Now care what the Labour say, we can overcome it.
Vote if you don't want Andrew to build big house. Vote if you want Juliet to have fairness. Vote if you want Andrew to go in yard.
I want the boy Andrew call it no, don't wait. No, what you say? Landslide.
It's evident that even amid the sea of enthusiasm, there's a simmering discontent directed at the current government. Alongside the excitement, many comrades voiced frustration with the ruling Jamaica Labour Party.
Tell Andrew say time come and pick back up.
Jamaica see what I want. And we know not more to say.
Send a message to the Jamaican people.
Time has come, Jamaica. We need a change.
Even amid the celebratory mood, there's an undercurrent of urgency. This conference, a young voter says, is a turning point, not just for her party, but for the country.
When you do not vote and you keep complaining about the negative thing that is happening in the country, it does not make any sense because you did not contribute your vote.
As the crowd surged towards the doors of the arena, it's clear that it wasn't just another political gathering. For many, it's a call to action, and above all, a belief indeed the people's time has finally come. Ramon Gordon for CVM News.
When I see these things, I wonder how people don't love politics. It gets me excited. All right, after the break, we'll hear from two gentlemen of the politics, their perspectives on what happened, what was said on Sunday.
Never feel we culture, yo.
New beginning, we winning, so share our spirit where you living, yeah.
Share it.
I make we all a one bar, you don't know we come from far.
From far, anytime we rep, feel we country. Rear rum, it have to come with me.
No matter with the bad vibes.
Poor rear rum, a celebration time. Rear rum,
I feel we culture.
Rear rum.
Make we show ya Jamaican culture.
And if you overproof from we just have to do with culture.
You know the boys down at the Rock Roar, you know they're gonna eat you alive.
I know they will.
And just to make sure, you gotta do it one more time.
Lord.
Meow.
Schoolboy Football, September 7 to December 14 on CVM TV.
Welcome back to Lead Story here on CVM TV. So one of the most well-received presentations on Sunday came from the opposition Senator Damian Crawford, the man who's lining up to represent the PNP in Northwest St. Catherine at the next general election. Well, maybe some people would say the best speech of the evening, but I don't want to offend those who believe that, only the current leader should be given that accolade. And across the fence is a member of the JLP's Communication Task Force, Marlon Morgan. And I've invited them both here because obviously there are differing perspectives on what happened on Sunday. Senator Crawford, you were there. You were a part of the reason that comrades felt so good going home after conference because of the energy that they felt, the messaging that you helped to deliver. Reflecting now, the soup is a day old, Senator Crawford. What do you think are the best ingredients from what was served up to comrades on Sunday inside the arena?
The soup is a day old, yet it's still hot and extremely nutritious. Of course, the party leader's presentation showing his own growth and the depth that he has, but also the party leader's ability to discuss the plans, some of the plans that we had forward to put forward. That was a central part. The discrediting of the conversation about unity, that was unclear show that we were one team, one group that was waiting to govern the country. The ability to show the multiplicity of talents that we had and the capacity to form a government, to create a cabinet, and the persons who were of greater capacity than those that were being offered from the Jamaica Labour Party. I think that was also an achievement. And the ability to show that we're a big tent movement that attracts persons from all walks of life and some of the most influential entities within the society was another aspect. So those things, I think, are the major ingredients that made this such a nutritious soup.
At conference, Senator Crawford, you have two main aims a party does have. One is to give the core support of the party, they call it the base, something to hold on to, a reason to be excited about the party's fortunes in the coming election campaign. And then 2, to give those with only a passing interest in the politics, or those who are hard neutrals, or those who vote on issues, not necessarily with a dedicated side, to give that group something to contemplate and say, I think this party is preaching the message that I want to hear. Do you think that you scored maximum points speaking to both those broad groups?
I think we scored highly. It's very difficult to score maximum points because all groups have different interests, and sometimes they are even counterbalancing interests. But I think we scored highly. I think that most Jamaicans, teachers, policemen, those who are of low income, those who are business practitioners, could feel that there is a space. The entertainment fraternity could feel that there is a space for them. And those who really are not comfortable with the society that we have currently created, they can feel that there was a space. So generally, I believe we scored highly because we'd have captured many groups, most of the largest groups in the society. And we'd have satisfied our workers with the 3 aims of a conference, or of our conference: to educate, to entertain, and to motivate. And I think we did that well.
Yeah. Marlon, the only word from the Jamaica Labour Party is that the ideas from the opposition leader and from the conference in general were nothing new. And the PNP came with a package of policy ideas that really reflect things that are already in train by the Holness administration. Is that a fair thing for the Jamaican people to draw from the conference through the JLP's eyes?
Well, that's an observation that the Jamaica Labour Party stands by, and I trust that as this conversation this evening ensues, we will be able to interrogate that some more and drill a bit further to prove that that was in fact the case. But for starters, I am of the view that political parties, as we readily appreciate, exist to contest elections and I dare say win those elections. And so to the extent that the PNP was able to mobilize its base, bring out its crowd for its annual conference, that is a credit to its secretariat and of course its machinery. And it's not particularly surprising. We're at a juncture in the scheme of things where this particular season of conference for both the PNP and, of course, the Jamaica Labour Party's conference to come in November may well be the last before the general elections that are constitutionally due by September 2025 are held. But in terms of the substance of things, we find that there were considerable degrees of theatrics. There was an attempt to create a buzz. But when you strip away that fluff and consider and examine what it is that the PNP has been bringing to the table and what it is that they profess to do, you find that much of what they are articulating is either already in train, and the government is far advanced with those. I speak, for example, of the suite of infrastructure deliverables that they are speaking to. We have a flagship program dubbed the Spark program. At present, we have the REACH program, which deals with road repairs and patching in place. The National Housing Trust is far advanced with work as it relates to restoring some of our urban spaces, many of which have been blighted by urban sprawl. So communities are being rehabilitated in terms of zinc fences being taken down and appropriate and dignified concrete structures being erected. You also have land titling that is going on at considerable pace, not least the done beholden land titling that we saw in recent weeks. We now have Windsor as one of those in Northeast St. Ann, for example, to attend to, and a suite of others around the country, because the Labour Party believes in not just talk, but substance, and of course, undergirding that with action.
Let me ask you this quick one before the break, Marlon Morgan. People will say, look, the Mark Golding that presented himself on Sunday is a most formidable political rival, and the Labourites who used to scoff at Mark Golding in the past and say, oh, we want him to remain as PNP leader because he can't match our leader, he can't match Brogard. This is a different Mark Golding, and he's more than a match for Holness. And some say that was the Mark Golding who was on show on Sunday. I want you to respond to that.
Well, let's be very clear. The Labour Party does not take for granted any opponent We see our opponents as worthy opponents, and we are humble enough, and we're not arrogant. We don't dismiss our competition or our opponents in any flippant way. What we will say, though, is insofar as a track record of performance, experience, and expertise that we've seen exhibited by the head of government, Prime Minister Andrew Holness, we believe, and most Jamaicans, any objective assessment of things will demonstrate that Andrew Holness presents a more credible and viable opposition as head of government in this country than does a Mark Golding.
Hear you on that. After the break, gentlemen, we'll talk some policy in the time we have left. This is Lead Story, CVM TV.
The time by Grace. Taste that moves you is
6:45.
Look who we have in the cut. No, today episode I got nice. Legends, Senator, my longtime brethren, the great, all-star, the king, and the man himself. Salute! You know, as man, we're not too God specialist, and that's the pinnacle of the problem. We want some new era. Do what you love and you never work a day in your life. Lie! You work till you week. It was pandemonium. Country people can relate to me I talk about.
What you think about me no matter, you know. What matter to me is what me think about myself.
Man United, you know. I don't care what man wants to say.
You know, man. Yeah, man. You know, man. You finished?
Yes, we finished.
The Cut is brought to you by Flow.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Welcome back to a Lead Story here on CVM TV. Let me get right into it. Senator Crawford, the essence of your message on Sunday was that where the policy argument on education is concerned, this administration has done so badly that they ought not even to be invited to the table to discuss education policy and implementation. How do you intend to fix it under a PNP administration?
Well, first of all, we should never allow for the JLP to rewrite history, because Bobby Montague, the chairman, no less than the chairman of the Jamaica Labour Party, had ridiculed Mark Golding as an asset to the Jamaica Labour Party. And now they are running scared of Mark Golding, incapable of even considering an election anytime soon, because Mark Golding has improved himself and distinguished himself as a leader that people can not only trust but have confidence in to move the country in a direction that they're satisfied with. Now, we heard the JLP said, oh, not the things the PNP put forward were not new. But I can stick only to my speech. I don't even have to go to Dayton's speech. I don't have to go to Natalie's speech nor Mark's speech. But when we look at absenteeism in this country, up to 32% in the rural areas, 18% in the urban areas, we said we're going to do 1 meal per child per day in school. That is new. That's not being done currently. Currently, the principals are calling for additional funding for just those on path who are only getting 3 meals at $150. So that in itself is new. When we say we want to increase the boarding competence, the boarding capacity, so that we can create greater access to education, being a cumulative offering, that is new. That JLP has never ever thought of that. They'll steal it tomorrow, but they've never thought of that. When we say we're going to extend the school day from 2:30 to 4:30, so that we can have homework and remedial classes on Mondays and Wednesdays, and we can have clubs and societies for socialization and attachment on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The JLP have never thought of that. They'll steal it tomorrow, but they've never thought of that. When we say that we're going to be doing a compensation to the basic schools, based on their deliverables and their delivery of the desired outcome. The JLP have not even been able to register the majority of basic schools. So I don't even have to go past my 8 minutes to show that the JLP's assumption of newness is a flawed assumption and truthful statement.
And Mr. Morgan, when the JLP says that the PNP is speaking about policies that are already in train, is that a fair enough argument to neutralize the point, given that the things that the JLP says it's doing, many people say are not being done well?
Well, first of all, much of what the JLP has done is informed by data and empirical assessment of the landscape here in Jamaica. But before I go further into that, I just want to respond to a few of the examples that Damien cited just now in relation to education and prescriptions coming from him as one of the point persons for the PNP and one of the speakers at this conference last afternoon. First of all, you will hear from Damien a wish list, an exhaustive wish list. What you will not hear from him is a single iota of narrative as to how a PNP government would underwrite, would fund some of what he's talking about. So, for example, you will hear that they are intent on feeding every child in school, or presenting or providing 1 meal per day for every child in school. You will not hear from him a credible outline as to how that will be done. No, that is absolutely admirable. And that is why the Labour Party, when it took office in 2016, eventually moved the number of feeding days for children on path, the most vulnerable among us, from 3 days per week to 5 days per week. That is a fact that is, verifiable, and persons can check that for themselves. Because we understand the dynamic between nutrition, the link between nutrition and learner readiness in the classroom space and in the teaching and learning setting. Now, the idea behind providing boarding for persons is also admirable. But what Damien has to understand and what the PNP has to appreciate is that it is to the extent that you continue to maintain macroeconomic stability and grow the economy that you're going to be able to generate the resources to treat with some of these things in a sustainable way. And that is why the government at present continues to remain focused and sober on maintaining macroeconomic stability and going after accelerated growth, because we recognize that much of the deliverables that are in the Jamaican landscape can only come by an economy that is generating sufficient government revenue, tax resources that will enable government to improve the suite of public services that it provides for the people of Jamaica.
Senator Crawford, Mr. Morgan says...
Yes, I think I must respond.
Yes, please respond.
Yes. The misguided notion of the Jamaica Labour Party is that there isn't a discretionary component of the budget. The budget has 3 components. You must pay the salaries, you must pay the debt, and then the government priorities take the discretionary component. The JLP's priorities are not the same as the People's National Party's priority. And indeed, I can read an article from April 28, 2024, where Homer Davis calls for Path to Craft feeding program for students in primary school. And this Homer Davis is a member of the Jamaica Labour Party. So facts cannot be just based on statements, but I'm looking at an article right here, and I think that is from Loop News on the 14th of April. So the reality is that if the JLP believes that $40 billion for road infrastructure is sufficient for it no longer to be a conversation, they're highly misguided. But neither has the Spark program started. The Spark program be announced at least 4 times by the Prime Minister, and we're still not seeing gravel on the ground or asphalt where it needs to be. So while it is that we're happy that they are intending on starting, there will still be a need for infrastructure development. What we have highlighted, however, is that in the 4 years that the current minister and in the 8 years that they have been in government, we have 18% of our children getting what is acceptable in CXC. And we have thousands of children not proficient in math, English, social sciences, or the sciences. And we have no true prescription. Yeah. We also know that teacher migration has not been handled, and a promise of Ghanaian teachers have fallen flat on its face, with the minister only stating in a whisper that they are no longer coming.
So, Mr. Morgan, hold on, Marlon. Let me put it to you. Let me craft the question, because Senator Crawford says that where education is concerned, the numbers in terms of the performance in the recent external exams put a burden on the JLP that it can't just brush off just like that, because the results are showing that the things you are doing are not redounding to the best results, and that the PNP can do better is what he is saying. You have to respond to that.
And I'll come to that in a bit, right? Now, first of all, contrary to what Damien articulated just now, there are not 3 but 4 elements to the national budget. You have wages and salaries for the public sector. You have debt servicing, programs and capital expenditure, what you spend on roads, bridges, new water systems, and so on. The idea is that you will not hear from Damien. He speaks, for example, about discretionary resources in the budget, and it is not quite so. Budgets do have a degree of buffer, and you do have contingencies in a budget, yes, but you don't have money floating around. You have to show where you're going to be taking resources from to redirect it or channel it elsewhere, and they are not able to do so in any compelling or credible way.
Speak to the results, no, Mr. Morgan. Speak to the results. Speak to the results.
That's what I'm coming to.
Yes.
So to come back and bring focused attention to the matter of education, the truth of the matter is that Jamaica, like the entire global community, was hard hit by the worst pandemic in over a century. Yes, the COVID-19 pandemic. That triggered a considerable degree of learning loss. And when you consider that within the context of some of the deficits that existed in the system, I speak of broadband connectivity, for example, it is not difficult to see why some of those challenges in many of our schools, which the Labour Party government since 2016 has been working assiduously and earnestly to resolve, are, would have existed in the system. Now, we cannot overlook the fact that we have been a low-growth economy over many years. The political party with which Damien Crawford is affiliated was in power for 18 and a half successive years, a period of time where the global economy grew on average by 5% while we hobbled along.
But Mr. Morgan, hold on, Mr. Morgan, hold on. Marlon, hold on. The results of the recent external exams are purely, wholly and solely the JLPs. These are your results. So you have to own them and speak to what you're doing to fix them, or you're going to do to fix them.
And let me do so in a minute or two.
We don't have a minute or two, Marlon, and that's the point I'm making.
Let me do so in 40 seconds then,
yes.
40 seconds.
Yes.
One of the things we'll focus attention on is the de-shifting in our schools to ensure that we have more expanded time for teaching and learning. So whilst some schools, for example, Bridgeport High, you would have had youngsters going off to school from 7:30 and you have to wrap up by 12:30 to facilitate the second shift. You are now going through a full day, not dissimilar to the kind of idea Damien espoused just now, in terms of a longer school day. So the idea is that we've been focusing attention on improving broadband capacity, nutritional support in our schools, and expanding the school spaces